mean time between failures stack up into the 175 to 250 year lifespan.
RFID, or radio frequency identification devices, fall basically into three frequency operating ranges: low, medium, and high. The medium frequency is the least used because of various governmental restrictions around the world.
High frequency tags are most commonly found in automotive toll collection applications, rail car and intermodal container applications, whereas the low frequency tags are found in animal identification, personnel access control systems, many factory automation tags, pallet identification, asset identification applications, that sort of thing. High frequency tags that can read 200 feet are not uncommon at all. High frequency tags that can read a quarter of a mile, for instance, do exist, although they're expensive. Passive tags, I have seen passive tags that can read 200 feet. So low frequency devices especially, and by low frequency I'm talking about things in the 125 kilohertz range, will read through the body. And that means then they read through flesh, blood, bone, skin, and therefore the entire concept of implanting animals with radio frequency identification tags was conceived many years ago.
For more than 10 years, the military has been investigating the possibility of replacing the GI's dog tag with a smart card or other type of RFID transponder. But there is a hitch.
Notably that of if you have a device containing a substantial amount of information on a GI, on a battlefield, and then that device and or the GI associated with it fall into the hands of the enemy, you've now transmitted a tremendous amount of data, possibly to that enemy in a combat situation. We're not part of a military program to implant tags in humans. In fact, we are not part of any program to implant tags in humans. But a glass encapsulated animal tag only begs the question of the definition of what type of animal, and if that definition is a mammal, certainly it would include man. Are there humans running around somewhere on the globe with tags, RFID tags implanted in them? Yes, absolutely conclusively so.
At least 6 million medical devices a year are implanted in human beings, everything from vascular grafts to breast implants. The United States Food and Drug Administration has implemented a new ruling called the Safe Medical Device Registration Act of 1994. This act mandates that all prosthetic medical devices to be put into human beings must be tracked from the time of manufacture through implantation and possible eventual removal. You'll never guess where a radio frequency identification device is shown up now, in a new type of breast implant. In order to comply with the Safe Medical Device Registration Act, the breast implant contains a Hughes RFID chip. It is currently being tested in 100 women in Britain, Italy, and Germany.
The RFID device, which is actually physically attached to the breast implant itself. A really interesting aspect of that is that once the breast implant is implanted in the patient, the radio frequency transponder can be read after implantation, and so that many years following the implantation of this device, that registration number can be read by the patient going to a hospital or a doctor that has a reading device. Inside this circular area is perhaps very hard to see, but a slight line of outline here of a linear device, and that is the radio frequency transponder that's been associated with the breast implant insert itself at the time of manufacture.
Radio frequency ID is positive identification when an RFID chip is implanted in the human body. But by linking it with biometrics, identification is just as certain even when used as an external tag. The U.S. government proved that in the Caribbean with a program they call Deployable Mass Population Identification and Tracking System. As the Coast Guard rescued wave after wave of Haitian refugees from the angry seas, identification and processing became a major problem. Before the flood of humanity began to slack off, more than 50,000 Cuban and Haitian refugees had been processed at the Navy base at Guantanamo Bay. Identification of the refugees originally was accomplished with a simple hospital-type plastic bracelet with a slip-in identification card, but that quickly proved unsatisfactory.
They needed to find a way that they could process these people much faster, give them a much better stay while they were there. So we got into the development of the electronic identification bracelet, which is basically an identification card. Each number was unique. They could process them very quickly electronically. As I stated, it only takes 39 milliseconds to scan and pick up the unique ID number. You could process people very, very rapidly.
In its final form, the Deployable Mass Population Identification and Tracking System consisted of an electronic RFID transponder bracelet, a digitizing camera, and a digital fingerprinting system, all linked to a computer database.
That microchip number that was in the electronic identification bracelet would also correspond in their computer database with the digital fingerprint system. So therefore they had a backup at all times if a bracelet were to be, for some reason, fail, which the possibility of that is unlikely, less than 1 in 100 billion. But if that were to happen, they could always trace the individual as to the proper identification by the electronic fingerprint system.
The radio frequency identification bracelet is constructed of a highly durable nylon and looks much like a waterproof wristwatch.
This is the electronic ID bracelet, which is very similar to a waterproof watch. The electronic device that is inserted into the bracelet consists of an integrated circuit, which is attached to an antenna to receive the signal. It is simply inserted into the top of the disc, and then we have sonically weld another piece of nylon to the top of that to give it hermetic seal and totally waterproof.
The Navy at Guantanamo Bay has more than 150 scanners to read the identification bracelets. The scanners will input the refugee's unique 9-digit ID number directly to a computer through an RS-232 port. The refugees are scanned often, when they need medical services, when they are transferred between camps, when they fill out questionnaires. Refugee organizations like the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees and the Organization for Refugees also use scanners to facilitate their interviews. In order to keep the electronic identification bracelet from being removed, it was secured around the refugee's right wrist with a pop rivet. In the case of children with small wrists, it was pop riveted around their ankle. Just what did the refugees think about their identifying mark? The reaction was mixed. Some refugees say they actually like wearing the bracelet, feeling they were now being taken seriously, were now part of the system. Others wore it because without it, they could not receive medical attention and other necessities. And one was wisely bothered because in the Bible, Revelation 13:16 speaks of how we will all be marked in the right hand with the number of the beast. But like it or not, all were forced to wear it. The electronic identification system at Guantanamo Bay was so successful that it is now being tested in the United States for border control by the Department of Justice and Immigration. The Deployable Mass Identification and Tracking System was one of the first major programs to cross the controversial line and actually tag human beings electronically. For those refugees rewarded with immigration status, it was a blessing. But for those who were denied entry, the euphoria of being part of the system suddenly turned bitter. They did everything they could to remove their mark. Some made crude knives in an attempt to cut the bracelet off. Others, in desperation, tried to chew it off, but to no avail. They were marked men. Their digitized fingerprints and photographs in the computer left them no escape. The official reaction to their unhappiness? A recommendation that the plastic bracelets be reinforced with steel wire, making it even more difficult to cut or chew. But don't feel too badly for the refugees. We too are marked. Our digitized fingerprint, retina scan, or hand geometry pattern will permit us to buy the food and services we need if we have the mark. Television cameras on street corners will ensure that we obey all rules. Traffic violations will be cited by machines, and our vehicles will be tracked by government satellites orbiting overhead. Fiber optic cables being installed at this very moment will let Big Brother spy on us right in our own homes. Very soon, the cashless society will be fully upon us, and our paychecks will be entered directly into the smart cards we will carry in our pockets. The smart card chip will be reduced in size, then become part of the injectable biochip. It will be our electronic purse, our new money. Like our pets, we will be permanently marked, effectively owned by the state. You can run, but you cannot hide.
The book of Luke, chapter 21, verse 10 and 11, warns us as the end nears, nation shall rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom. There will be great earthquakes in many places. There'll be famines, pestilences. There are fearful sights that are going to come out of the heavens. Mark chapter 13, verse 28 and 29, advises us to learn the parable of the fig tree. It says, when her branch is tender and puts forth leaves, you know that summer is near. So in the same way, when you see these things come to pass, know that it is near, even at the door. Revelation chapter 1, verse 3 tells us to pay attention to the prophecies. The Bible says, blessed is he that reads and hears the word of the prophecy and keeps those things which are written therein, for the time is at hand. Despite every attack, the Bible is still the world's best-selling book. It has been translated into more than 1,400 languages, and time after time, its prophecies have been proven 100% accurate. Check it out for yourself. Be prepared. The time is at hand.
The water's coming out to the back room. Some pipes came loose or something, and hot water's
Okay, sir, the fire department does not handle that. You'll have to go out and turn the water off at the main.
In our lifetime, there have certainly been more earthquakes than ever before in the history of the world. Famine and disease are rampant. Nation has risen against nation in tragic war, and kingdom fights kingdom in civil battle. Technology in itself is neither good nor evil, but it is technology that is ushering in the cashless society and the one world government.
What is at stake is more than one small country. It is a big idea, a new world order.
Technology is power, and sooner or later, total power will corrupt totally, bringing pain, suffering, and enslavement.
So wie ihr in stolzer Ergebenheit diesem Deutschland Dienst wird heute Deutschland in stolzer Freude seine Söhne in euch marschieren sehen.
Heed the warning of the scriptures and be alert, for the technology is at hand to brand each and every one of us with the mark of the New World Order.